When I started live streaming and I was seeing the hearts and seeing the comments, I was like, this is for me. I didn't have to bring any gear anywhere. I could be wearing pajamas on the bottom and I was still able to make this great content. Even if I fall in my freaking 4-inch heels, I'm going to be fine. And I think that's also come with age, where I've just
Yes.
stopped caring what people
Yeah.
think. I've been singing for my entire life, and I knew I wanted to do it professionally when I was 11 because I wrote my first song and played it at the talent show, and people responded really well to it. I think that part of my personality really helps me be a lot more fearless and just push record or push go live. But yeah, there are times when I'm like, please don't talk to me. I can't people anymore.
Welcome back to another episode of the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. I'm Ian Anderson Gray, and in this season, we're going down the path and the journeys of my guests' confidence and communication journeys, because we all have a message. We all have a message to communicate to our audience, but sometimes there are things that can get in the way of us communicating our message effectively while staying ourselves, being authentic. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm excited to bring back a returning guest to the show, who is Laura Davidson, who is a singer, songwriter, mum, and podcaster. And these are just a few of the hats that Laura wears on a daily basis. She also leads a market development team at Shaw Incorporated, where she helps people learn about microphones and solve tech mysteries. And that time I was about to say tech ministries. It was last time I think I was going to say tech miseries, but anyway, I don't know what's happening to my head.
No, I cannot solve that for you. No, Ian, that I can't do.
The Ministry of Tech. Anyway, let's not go there. We talked last time you were on about your studio setup. We went down a rabbit hole on microphones and audio, which was really interesting. I love that kind of thing. But you also, as well as working for Shaw, who is known worldwide for producing these amazing microphones, you also are a singer, and you've been a singer for a long time. So I'm going to ask you to give a brief introduction about you, highlighting your background, but maybe if you could go a little bit further back and tell us about your history in the music world and how that's helped you produce videos and create content and podcasting and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been singing for my entire life, and I knew I wanted to do it professionally when I was 11 because I wrote my first song and played it at the talent show, and people responded really well to it. And I got a couple solos and at the choir concerts and whatever, and really just fell in love. So I have very supportive parents. My dad has since passed, but they always pushed me to do what I wanted to do and told me, here's your college money. You can either go to college or you can try your luck, they called it, and move to the city, which I was too chicken to do. So I went to Chicago and went to DePaul University for my first year, where I was studying opera because I had this grand idea that I was going to get a classical background, which is how I started on piano at 7, classical background. And then parlay that into this great successful pop music career where I was gigging at night and getting the technical chops during the day. Turns out opera was not my thing. So I transferred to Berklee College of Music in Boston my sophomore year and graduated from there and just learned a ton. I call it rock and roll college because it really was. People were legit, like that show Fame, like singing in the hallways and being ridiculous. And it was amazing. And then I graduated from there, moved to Nashville knowing exactly one person because I didn't want to move to New York or LA. I was too afraid I'd starve to death because I had $50,000 of student loans, and just started singing. And that's how I got to the professional level. Did a bunch of demo singing gigs, which, if you're not familiar with what that is, there's a lot of writers who write songs but who don't sing or can't sing. And so they hire professional singers to sing their songs, and then they pitch those songs to artists to put onto their albums. So I did that for a long time. And then I got asked to demonstrate music gear for a company called TC Helicon at a trade show, fell in love with that. They hired me full time. And because of that, I met another wonderful musician and producer, Robbie Broneman, who works with an artist named Howard Jones. And they were going out on tour, and Howard is always at the forefront of technology. And he saw me demonstrate this harmonizer pedal that turned my voice into 4 voices of harmony and said, I want Laura to come out on tour. And so I started background singing with him and got to tour Japan and Australia and England and the US. And it was super fun. And all the time working full time for a music company. So I still do that now. I still sing. I don't background tour around the world. or background singer tour, but I still tour or sing a lot with a band and by myself. So that was a long-winded answer.
No,
Sorry.
that's the kind of answer that we want. And it's great that you're still singing because that is a challenge. And we were talking about this before. Like I do still sing. I don't sing professionally so much anymore, but I think it's always a challenge as well when you have a family and kids and stuff. So I actually teach both my kids singing and they're doing really
Oh,
well.
wow.
In fact, my daughter is singing in a choir at the proms, which will be broadcast on the BBC TV, which is amazing. So it's great to see them have that opportunity. And it's interesting, like you mentioned opera, because I studied music at university and I went to the Royal Northern College of Music to do a singing degree. And it was very opera based. And I felt that I should be doing it, but I realized probably too late that actually I didn't really want to go down the opera route. And having said that, so I felt that a little bit of guilt almost because that's what everyone else wanted to do. But I do think, and I don't know about you, this is probably, we're diverting away from the topic, but I'm interested in your view that despite that opera wasn't really what I want to do, I think I still learnt a lot from it because
Oh,
it
yeah.
got me on stage and a little bit out of my comfort zone. And I did little operatic excerpts. My problem was my memory wasn't great, so I was having to remember all these lyrics in Italian.
Foreign language lyrics. Yes,
Exactly.
there's that.
Yeah, I'm just interested. That wasn't what you wanted to do and wasn't what you were going to do. But do you think it was still a useful experience, that kind of classical background?
Absolutely. I think that having that formal level of training with the instructors that I did was extremely helpful because it taught me to approach my breath in an entirely new way and taught me how to place my voice in an entirely new way. And it was also very scary in that time for me because I had been in a car accident when I was 17 and I messed up my neck, not realizing how much it actually had. Because once I got to college and started singing all the time, I lost my voice and it was terrifying. And I went to this fantastic chiropractor in Chicago. He did one adjustment and I had my range back. So it was very interesting to learn that at 18 years old that your body, when your instrument is living inside of it, there are a lot of different variables
Mm.
that are going to control it that will be out of your control. So I had to learn how to navigate around that, and having that classical instructor who was just amazing in my corner saying, "You're gonna be fine. Let's work through it and around it." It was very beneficial.
Yeah, I think that's how I see it as well. All these, even if we go down a path that we're not currently going down, we can still learn from that. So
Mhm.
you were doing all this singing, performing. When did you first get in front of the microphone or in front of the camera and create content? And for me, I almost found it easier getting on stage and singing than getting in front of the camera. Uh,
Oh,
but that's not necessarily everyone's thing. I think for me, because in front of a camera, I didn't have an audience and I was used to bouncing off an
yes.
audience. And this kind of camera is like this inanimate object, particularly if you're recording video, we're having a conversation. So we're talking with each other. You're just recording a video with just you or podcast with just you. There's no audience there, but we're all different. What was your first experience in front of the camera? Did you struggle with confidence or were you able to transition quite easily from presumably being very confident as a singer to in front of the camera?
I transitioned, it was trial by fire really, because when I started doing trade shows, they would be filming me for the press. So I didn't know that. And I was kind of like, okay. And so it changed the approach completely because if I was doing a demo for a group of people, I was getting that on stage experience. And then they started adding a camera into it. And this was in 2006. So it wasn't just like people had phone cameras they were holding up. That came a little bit later. It just happened naturally. So you can go down a rabbit hole on YouTube with me and you'll find some videos from 2007 that are like, wow, that's awkward. But that's how I did it. I would travel around the country and the world showing people how to use the gear. And we would always film a video because the dealer, the music account, would want to have that video to put onto their website. So that's how I got started there. And then when live streaming happened, I loved it because I was like, this is what I was built for. And once I got through, I guess once I started doing webinars all the time during lockdown, which I hate webinars. I love live streaming, and I'll tell you why. then I felt like I could do anything, because webinars talk about being alienating. Like, you are talking to people, but you can't see them, you can't interact with them, and there's no real-time feedback aside from a Q&A, and there's always a moderator, at least the way we do them at Shore. So then when I started live streaming and I was seeing the hearts and seeing the comments and I was like, "This is for me." I didn't have to bring any gear anywhere. I could be wearing pajamas on the bottom and I was still able to make this great content. So it was a nice progression.
That's really interesting. And I agree with you about webinars. I think live streams can be webinars. Is that the right way
Right.
around? I think you can make webinars more like live streams. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
I
And
think so too, yeah.
yeah, and maybe for you, it was part of your job. You were demonstrating gear, and then people turned up with cameras, and so you can have almost. It's not like you didn't notice they were there, but okay, I'm just carrying on what I'm doing. Maybe that was
Mhm.
part of it, and you were able to transition from the performance in front of maybe an audience into that, and maybe also, I don't know, you tell me, but you didn't really get much time to think about it. I wonder whether, if we think about it too much, if we start to think about, oh, there's a camera there, I'm going to make an idiot of myself, we start to overthink things, then yeah,
Right.
we're going to create problems for ourselves. And that was my problem. I was overthinking it. But I think if I'd done what you had done and gradually transitioned it and just focused on actually what I was doing, not on being in front of the camera, that would have made a big difference. Would you agree?
Yes, and I rarely script. When I
Mm.
am scripted, I'm worse at what I
Yeah,
do. I don't
yeah,
have a teleprompter. That was in your show notes, like, what teleprompter? I don't have one of those. That's just a stupid human trick I have, is that I'm better when I'm unscripted. So, I think I tend to overthink when necessary for doing things like strategy, because that's where I feel like I do need to do a little bit of overthinking, but never for content. I feel it's better when it's more authentic.
yeah, definitely agree. And I do use a teleprompter, but I only use it for just very basic notes. So, for example, I've got questions on the screen in front of me, which I might not use all of them, but they're just to remind me to. And also, since we're trying to keep these fairly short, it keeps me on the point, which is sometimes helpful. But definitely, I agree with you. Like, not to write everything out, because you will basically sound like a robot, which isn't good. So
Yes. Nobody likes that.
we all love to hear disaster stories, and it's more a case of I think we all want to learn from disaster stories. We've all got them. I've had some disasters when it comes to creating either video content or podcast content. Have you got a disaster story, like a mistake that you made on camera? Did you learn from that experience?
So I was doing an interview and I was talking about microphones. It was for sure. And I did this where I held up a product, but I literally held up this microphone. This is the MV7 Plus, and I held it up before it was announced.
Oh
And I was like,
no.
and it was a live stream. So, but thankfully, I literally just did this and put it down. So it wasn't like, and then there's this thing. I had a lot of anxiety over that one, because I was like, I'm going to lose my job. This is going to be bad. But we rewatched it and made sure that it wasn't an issue, because thankfully the hosts were like, we can pull it off of the replay off of YouTube or whatever. So that was almost disastrous. I guess that one of my favorite ones, that's not even, it was a happy disaster, was when I did my first Ecamm Live boot camp or whatever they were doing. It was like one of their first ones, leap into live streaming or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did my session, and then I thought I was done, but Katie was like, "Okay, it's time for the Q&A session." And I was in my kitchen cooking dinner. So I joined and I answered Q&As while I was cooking dinner from like a meal kit. That was a happy disaster,
Oh,
but
I bet that was a lot of fun. So presumably
oh,
the first part was pre-recorded, and then you were going to join for the live bit. Was that how it
I
worked?
can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like I had done my session earlier in the day and then I came back on and didn't
Yeah.
get the memo, but I don't remember, Ian, but I was like, "What?" And so so I
Well,
am abysmal at scheduling.
yeah.
I'm really bad. Thank God for Calendly and
I know. I
Outlook.
know. It's good. It's good. It's a good. I think it's more difficult for those of us who maybe get overwhelmed with all this stuff. It's a much more kind of complicated world that we live in than maybe 100, 200 years ago. But the cool thing is we have loads of great tools to help us get on track. Calendly and calendars. And I don't know about you, but I'm loving AI, like ChatGPT, the voice app. I'm
Yeah.
using it to get all my thoughts together, all jumbled in my head, and I can talk to it. And at the end of it, it actually makes sense of all of that stuff in my head, which is great. So
Really?
yeah, it's great. So I actually came back. I dropped my daughter off at a choir rehearsal in Manchester, and had a half-hour drive journey back. So I just spoke to ChatGPT on my car, and I got all my things sorted for my business. It was amazing, like all the stuff that was going on in
What
my
do you
head.
mean you spoke to ChatGPT and then said, organize my thoughts, and it
Yeah, so we had a
magically
conversation back and
Oh,
forwards. So like there's the
what?
ChatGPT app, there's a voice record app. I used to have a conversation. He said, I'm just driving back on my journey, and I've got all these thoughts for my business. I'm trying to get some clarity on them. Here are my thoughts. Could you respond?" And then it will respond, and then you say, "Yeah, that's what I mean, but also I meant, can you add that? And who would I be best to speak to?" It's amazing. Yeah,
Wow.
check it out.
So
So
yeah, Shure has its own chat GPT that we're allowed to use. So that's
ah,
the only one I use on my work computer. So
yeah.
I'll have to explore that on my other computer and see what I can
Yeah,
find
or
out
check
from
it.
you.
It's on your phone. It's on your it's the iOS or Android app. It's cool. We went down a rabbit hole there, but
We did. We did.
where did we get to? Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. So the question I wanted to ask you was: so you talked about your disaster, but I think one thing I'm really interested in is how personality comes into all of this in terms of producing content, getting in front of the camera, because we're all on some kind of spectrum, whether we're very shy or we're quite bold people, or whether we're introverted or extrovert or in the middle. How does your personality affect the way you turn up on camera?
It's interesting. It's something I'm trying to figure out at 45 years old. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Most people would say, oh, you're an extrovert, 100%. But I'm the kind of person who I desperately need to recharge my battery or else I just shut down. I get very ornery. I think it affects my content in a positive way because I'm not afraid to mess up. So the extrovert side of me who's fallen on my face or missung lyrics or whatever, dropped F bombs on camera on public radio too. That was great. Like, I know that it's going to be okay. It's not that deep. I think that part of my personality really helps me be a lot more fearless and just push record or push go
Mm.
live. But yeah, there are times when I'm like, please don't talk to me. I can't people anymore. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
one of those
that's
dual.
an interesting one. And I think that it depends on how you define introvert extrovert. Like for me, I define it as where do you get your energy from? And I was at a conference last week. This was Atomicon in Newcastle, and I'm definitely an introvert. I've worked that out about myself, but I became an extrovert for those 2 days. So I was talking to everyone, but whenever I do that, there are consequences, and I almost had to like be in a darkened room for the next 3 days because
Yes.
my energy levels went down. And so I think it's like, where do we get our energy from? I'm an introvert who needs people. I love the flexibility and the freedom that I have for working for myself, but I do love the conversations that I have with people, bouncing ideas off people.
Yes.
Does that kind of make sense? So I think,
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah. Like we're the same person. Or we are made up of similar things. Let's put it that
Similar,
way.
yeah. Although, like one thing that's interesting that you don't get stressed by when things go wrong. Whereas I think I have quite a high level of anxiety when I've got a lot better over the years, and I've tried to actually turn that round and actually enjoy when things go wrong because it's a learning experience. That doesn't always work, but
No,
it's
no.
something to work towards. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think earlier in my life, I would fret about things if I made a mistake or if I fumbled something here or there. But like last 2 weekends or 2 weeks ago, I was singing in a band for sure in Las Vegas on Old Red's stage. So, like a major venue in Las Vegas, opening for a band with my Shore colleagues. And some of them were highly anxious about it. And I suffer from anxiety. And I was just, you know what? I'm at a trade show. We're the opening act for this band. How cool is that? I have in-ears, which is I'm feeling spoiled. I have a great microphone and this venue is awesome and these guys are great. Even if I fall in my freaking 4-inch heels, I'm going to be fine. It was a nice sense of empowerment. And I think that's also come with age where I've just
Yes.
stopped caring what people
Yeah.
think. I'm just like, you don't like it? Sorry. I'm just not for you.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that one. I think I'm probably the happiest I've ever been in my 40s. And yeah,
Yes.
the 50s are fast approaching. Let's not talk about that. So
No, no.
we're almost out of time. But I just wanted to ask you what your top tips for effective and confident communication are, particularly for people who are a little bit nervous and want to get better at communicating in front of the camera? What would you say?
One of my top tips is for my team of guys. I have 3 amazing humans who work for me, and all 3 of them have different fear levels of getting on camera. So I hired an acting coach for them, a guy that I went to high school with, and MN Acting Studio is his company. And it was great. Highly recommend that. If you are somebody who just can't get out of your head, or you're worrying about how to film and how to record and how to be on camera and all those things, it's daunting. Start with that so that you learn where your gaps exist, and then just take a deep breath and go from there. That's my first tip.
That's awesome. I think sometimes you just need to get the help. Sometimes we're too close to ourselves, our business, everything, and getting some help. That's awesome. Thank you, Laura. We are out of time. I really appreciate you coming back on the show. It's been really interesting, really insightful, all the stuff that you've been sharing. Thank you so much. How can people find out a little bit more about you and connect with you on the socials and on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, you can find me at Laura Clapp Music. That's CLAPP. Yes, that is my real maiden name. And my artist name, lauraclapp.com and song43.com. That's my podcast. And find me there. Reach out. Let's talk.
Awesome. And of course, you can check out Shure Microphones as well. They have a website, I believe. So you can also do that.
Shure.com, SHURE. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. It's been great to have you on. But we are out of time. My goodness, it's gone so quickly. Thank you so much for plugging us into your ears or watching on the YouTubes. And you can check out the website at ieg.me/podcast. Do spread the word. But until next time, I encourage you to level up your impact, authority, and profits through the power of Confident Live Video. If I can say the words. Toodaloo. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Confident Live Marketing Show with Ian Anderson Gray.
Make sure you subscribe at iag.me/podcast so you can continue to level up your impact, authority, and profits through the power of live video.
And until next time,
Toodaloo.